Morning.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Hillary Hedges Rayport, and I'm chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. I'm going to call our Zoom meeting to order. The meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that anything you share could be captured on the camera, and the recording will be available later on the town's YouTube channel. Obviously, we're meeting remotely, and I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call of the commissioners and staff. Starting with Tom Montgomery.
Here.
Georgia Raisman.
Here.
David Silver.
Here.
Mickey Rowland.
Here.
Clement Durkees.
Here.
Angus McLeod.
Here.
And we have our town preservation planner, Holly Bacchus.
Present.
And we have two guests, Polly Waldorf and Aaron Doherty. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Polly.
Morning.
Yeah, you can hear us? Okay, great. Polly, I just want to make sure we can hear you.
Yes. Hi. Good
Oh,
morning.
there you are. Hello. Okay, so we're going to get started with our agenda. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from the February 18th meeting? Any discussion on the minutes?
I move we approve them as submitted.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
Second.
Okay, and I'll do a roll call vote. Tom?
Aye.
Georgia?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mickey?
Aye. Clement.
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye, and I'd like to thank David for his help with the minutes. And we're going to try to get the minutes out circulated to everybody like a week after the meeting or within 2 weeks, just so it's fresh in everyone's mind. I think it'll be a better system. And I think it's also fine to have briefer minutes just to jog everyone's memory. So Dave and I are going to work on that. Tom, question.
No, I just wanted to say that format that either David and you put together this time with in bold and then a little bit of narrative underneath it was the way to go.
Okay, good to hear. Great. Thanks for the feedback and thank you, David. Okay, announcements. So we have the sample form Bs for 3 structures and we need feedback to Holly. I still owe Holly my feedback and I imagine many of you do. So why don't we try to end a little bit early today and everybody can take like 20 minutes just to look through them and give feedback to Holly because she really needs to get it to the consultants. Holly, one thing I was going to make a point of looking at just to make sure we didn't forget it is that we wanted the consultants to note if there was historic pavement outside the house as part of our survey plan. I know we discussed that with the consultants, but I didn't know if that was included on their form.
On the Form B, that's not a typical element on a Form B. Is that what you're wanting to add?
Yeah, I know it's not typical, but we thought since we're not going to be surveying the streets and often people dig up their sidewalk and put it back in. I mean, you see like a whole street that has, you know, schist curbing and then it's like there's bluestone curb there and you know that happened because it just slipped through the crack. So
Definitely beneficial. I see it.
yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, Holly, I know there's another subcommittee meeting. I'm not on that group. So can we get an update on what's happening?
Yes. So with the phase meeting, we're actually going to have a meeting with MHC and PAL on March 10th next week. This is to go over where they're at right now, and as well as looking at, I think actually we're going to have hopefully both of the phases for both the pilot and the plan together. So obviously your comments on the Form Bs and those particular properties are beneficial. I did send Ginny and Melissa some comments that I've received so far from a commissioner, as well as some comments that I've had on the Form Bs, as well as the property list. specifically on the architectural styles. If you've noticed, typical Nantuckets are obviously typical to Nantucket and not anywhere else. And they're really something that are even annotated within our NHL documentation. And I think it's important because every type of architectural historian from the beginning till now, has always referenced typical Nantucket. So we want to continue that lingo. That was just a comment that I've had. So we look forward to that meeting. I think MHC is the one that will be circulating that information. So anybody that's on the subcommittee will be able to get that notice, and I'll make sure you guys get it.
Okay, so the next meeting, March 10th. Okay, and that's Angus, Tom and Barbara and Betsy.
What time is that meeting? 10?
10 a.m. Yes, and as you all, both Angus and Tom know, that was actually the time that we were going to meet again, hopefully to go over the plan mapping that we came through. But in the effort of time and the fact that the MHC has requested this date, I thought that was just to continue this. Let's get that momentum going, and hopefully between now and then maybe we'll get the updated plan map that we were working on with MHC. Sorry, Pal, just for the benefit of the commission, we were working on taking the entire island for the planned phase, and they left everything over of the town area, which town area, as you all know, is quite large. That's many different areas from Cliff all the way to Brant Point, center of town, out to West Monomoy and over. And we were really trying to nitpicky that, if you will. So we worked together and provided comments to Ginny and Melissa, and we're hoping that they'll update that map so we can share that with you all when we get that.
Great. Okay, so we're looking for the updated finished map from PAL, and we're going to have the phase 2 meeting with MHC, which is something we've been waiting to schedule for a while. So we're prioritizing it for March 10th, and we'll hear more about it at our regular March meeting. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to have the next item on our agenda, which is a discussion of the state historic preservation tax credits. We created some forms, which we've looked at over the past couple meetings. I've taken another crack at the application form just to streamline and standardize things for Holly, for our commission, and for the applicants. I'm going to go ahead and share that on my screen. Let me just get it up here. Here we go. Okay. So the idea behind this form is, I already said that, I don't need to say it again. This is pretty much identical to what we showed in February. It gives direction about what we need and why we need it. I've changed some things around, like I put Holly's contact information right up front. We were copying this from the Preservation Massachusetts form, so it just kind of customizing it more for our audience. And then I've also made it clear that unlike Preservation Massachusetts, we want to see the Part 1 and Part 2 application. Okay, all of this information is consistent. Now, I did have an idea since I looked at this yesterday, which is maybe we should put a checkbox so that applicants can indicate whether or not they've received a COA or where they are in the HDC process, because that seems to always come up. And ditto if there's anything from the planning board. So we would have like a new number in here which says, what's the status of any discussion with the HDC. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that came up in our last discussion was this number 5, properties National Register or other designation. I've taken out some of the language. I've just left it like this. I mean, to qualify for the tax credits, the Park Service will determine whether or not it's eligible for listing on the National Register. In other towns, it would actually need to be listed or determined to be eligible for listing. We don't list our properties on the National Register because we determine them to be contributing. So I've just left this as determined eligible because that's going to cover 100% of applications. And Holly, I wondered if that resolved your concern.
Yeah, I think that's much better than what was there before. Again, at the end of the day, we all know that Nantucket is a national registered district, so we're not like any other place. So I think that's good.
Yeah, okay. I just thought it would be consistent with the rest of the application. And that's pretty much it. There are no other changes except maybe formatting. So I'd love to hear questions about this. And if it's something that we feel is ready to accept and go on our website for future applications, I'd love to get a motion. I will mention that there's also a repeat application, which basically just says, are there any changes from your prior application? And, you know, I think Holly can proof that. I don't think I need to show it to you. It just follows this one. So I'd love to hear a discussion or a motion about accepting this to go live on our website. What do you guys
Hillary, I just had a question on that.
Yeah.
Does this also include the assessment that you sent me, the reference sheet?
No, that we're going to discuss that next.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah, this is just the form for the applicant.
I
I
would
feel like
move
this streamlines the process. And a lot of the questions that come up are addressed. So to have a checkbox sheet, I think is really helpful. I would make a motion to use this as one of our forms.
seconded.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, oh, whoops. Hang on. So I'm going to take a vote now. Tom,
Aye.
Mickey,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Clement.
Aye.
Okay, and I am also an aye. Okay, so I'm sure once we start using these, we'll realize, oh, there's this problem or that problem, and it will evolve. But for now, hopefully we'll have more applications and we will use this. Okay, now the next thing on our agenda is the general discussion regarding the letters of support. And I have another document to help frame that discussion, which is, this assessment form. And
Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention, Erin brought something up. She sent me a message, which I greatly appreciate. Just
Okay.
as a matter of process on the applications, the part 1 and part 2 may not be complete at the time that the letter is being requested, but plans could certainly be available. So maybe we want to have a note on there that references that.
Okay, so maybe it would say attach your part 1 or part 2 if available.
Absolutely.
Okay, I will add that.
Thank you, Erin, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So I thought this might be a useful document. We can decide whether or not we want to use it. Let me just zoom it. Whoops.
Hillary, while you're bringing that up, I did get a chance to look at it in between HDC last night and this morning.
Mhm.
And I do think that it's beneficial for folks that don't quite understand exactly the processes and the standards. But obviously for folks like Erin at Epsilon and any other of the professionals out there, I don't think it's necessary for them. I see it more of a information packet, if you will, and no more than that.
Okay, thank you, Holly. So to clarify, this is not for consultants unless they want to use it. I mean, it's this is, I think it's I think this, well, the agenda topic is to have a discussion about these tax credits, to discuss our role and discuss our assessment process, what we will and won't support and why. So, and also to clarify that, you know, ultimately the MHC is the deciding body here. And our role as a local historical commission is to give our full-throated support and do everything we can to help get these tax credit dollars for Nantucket projects that have demonstrable preservation benefit and community benefit. I mean, so we're really a cheerleader, educating the community about what is a good project and what is good preservation and community benefit. And that is the whole purpose of this program. So I know most people, I didn't share this document with the commission ahead of time because I felt that it had conclusions and opinions in it. So I'm sharing it publicly in the meeting, and then I hope we can have a discussion. So this says the Massachusetts Historic Preservation Tax Credit Awards are competitive, and the decision for the award rests with the Massachusetts Historical Commission. The Nantucket Historical Commission will do everything it can to show local support for historic preservation tax credit projects with demonstrable preservation benefit and community benefit. So then it outlines, really for the purpose of applicants or really of developers who, I think the audience is our own commission, you know, as we onboard new commissioners and as we have turnover. It's town staff that might be interested in this and might not know as much as you know, Holly. It's realtors and property developers who are interested in learning. And this way we have a document that they can look at and say, okay, this is what is likely to be approved. This is what this commission wants to support. So attributes of preservation benefit include the structure is historically significant and retains historic integrity. And I talked about what that really means. Project identifies and preserves the character defining features of the structure. The project follows the Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation or restoration. The project is approved by the HDC. I don't know. I mean, you know, I think that's kind of a question because they're two different things, whether or not it's, you know, architecturally approvable and whether or not it's a preservation oriented rehabilitation, but I put that there. And the structure is otherwise at risk of demolition. So these are all different criteria that we would weigh, that we do weigh. And then examples of strong community benefit include rehabilitating an abandoned structure for use, creating affordable housing, creating year-round rental housing, creating seasonal workforce housing, nonprofit educational or economic community benefit. Now, obviously not every project is going to have all of these things. Some projects might be like outstanding examples of preservation benefit, but less strong examples of community benefits, or you might have something that's the other way around. But I think by saying that these are the different factors that we would consider, that's just helpful clarification for folks. And then I've included some references, which are the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic rehabilitation. This is the website, and this is taken directly from the website. You know, I don't know if you want me to read it. And then these are all the 10 standards, which are well known. And then evaluating historic significance. This is a terrific document. It's not new, but it's timeless, which is the Park Service's guidance on evaluating historic significance. Obviously, we have our own period of significance, which is in our National Historic Landmark document and our list of contributing structures. So I hope you feel acquainted with this, and I'd love to hear discussion of it. Comments from the commissioners? Who wants to go first? Everybody needs to say something. Georgia.
I think it would be extremely helpful. I mean, especially if somebody coming to Nantucket from outside, which it seems a lot of current applicants are, who may be acquainted with some elements of Nantucket's historicity, but not much. This sort of gives you in a nutshell what you need to be thinking about.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. Angus? Anything you would change, or is it clear, or?
I think it's just looking at it, I think it's a great document. I appreciate all of the things that it brings up as far as preservation benefits, and the things that would encourage the historical commission to support projects, and then the varying benefits, whether it's more about the building or more about the community. And I think that it's extremely helpful to have the links for standards. And yeah, I think this would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you, Angus. Clement? Anything you change or any reaction?
No. Well, I think you should leave in that the project is approved by the Nantucket Historic District Commission, just because I think what they approve and what should be supported as a tax credit are not necessarily the same. But I think it helps to have the design approved. So you know that the design has been approved. You don't feel like you're going backwards on that. I also, what kind of bothers me is the affordable housing and rental aspect. I think, right now I feel like our community and our old houses, historic houses, are being renovated as a residence. And I don't know how you follow up and make sure they're renting it for a certain period of years, or it's available. I don't think any of them are being created for affordable housing unless that is specifically designated. So I don't know how that is, how you can follow up on that is my question, and make sure that it is being rented.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably it's right there in black and white. So, I think that's a hard thing to discern, but also something, I don't know if we need to follow up on that or what.
So I thought about that too, but that's actually the Massachusetts Historical Commission's responsibility to follow up on. They have like a inspection process. And okay, they don't just hand over the money, right? There's a part 3 that has to be filed.
Okay.
So I think just having the statement,
no, I think, yeah, because I think once again, if realtors would look at this, and perhaps, instead of just advising a new buyer, oh, you can get a tax credit, they should be able to say, go to this website and find out exactly what you have to do, because it's a lot more difficult than just applying for a tax credit.
Yeah.
So I think it's terrific. Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully will be used.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how we want to use this forum. If we want this forum to be primarily for to answer questions of folks interested in development projects, we might want to include a list of local consultants, because we're really hoping that they're going to use a consultant.
That's excellent. So in references, you could put that also.
If I may, on that note, I would reference to Preservation Mass, because they're the ones who hold a list of all consultants. That way they've obviously been vetted through the process. But I
Yeah.
also, on what Clement brought up about the HDC, I do think it's important. However, there's twofold on that. One, I've been requesting applicants with historic tax credits, just like our Resilient Nantucket design guidelines, to go through the historic determination process. Basically, they need to submit to the HDC with their historic information on the structure to get a historic determination letter from the HDC. That's something that's timeless. It's been going on since the creation of the HDC in 1955, and that's something that's going to stay with them. With that said, it's twofold. Not only would they be requesting their historic determination from the HDC, but they would also be submitting any type of proposed work, obviously, that they're going to be doing for that proposed rehab. So it would be twofold, two applications. And, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. We were not really necessarily saying you need to do one before the other, but that it needs to be done throughout the process. So I wouldn't want to hinder an applicant to, they cannot submit to the historical commission before they've gone to the HDC, but they can do it simultaneously, if that makes any sense. And I am kind of the common denominator between the two commissions, as well as through that review process, because I'm the one who writes the letter upon approval from the HDC. So just wanted to add that
Okay.
to the conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. So I'm not suggesting that we approve this at this meeting, and I know we have a lot to do, but I did just want to get ideas out there so we could think about it and maybe approve it at our next meeting. I have a question for folks. Should we include a paragraph about projects that are less likely to get approved, or do you feel like that's too directive or exclusionary? Any commissioners have an opinion about that, or is it just enough to have it be obviously the opposite of these things?
Hillary, when you look at the examples of strong community benefit, what I'm seeing is not listed there, which is sort of obvious, is seasonal rental housing. That's not necessarily benefiting the community as much as certainly the others are. So if that's is that sort of where you're going with this?
Actually, no, Mickey. I think where I'm going is to say that a project has many different facets, and if a project has extraordinary community benefit, but the only way you get that community benefit is that maybe some things have to change that aren't ideal for preservation, but you're doing the best you can. I think that's the lens the Mass Historical Commission uses, frankly, and that it's really a basket of things. I thought about, well, would we want to have a scoring? I don't know. We might get to that, but I think that's a little bit overly rigid at this point. But I definitely would not want to say, we're not going to support projects that are short-term rentals, because the only way some of these buildings are going to get saved and used, maybe in some cases, a short-term rental.
Well,
and I think we saw that with 6 Gull Island.
It's the majority of projects probably do, or not the majority, but quite a few projects will include short-term rentals or seasonal rentals, whether it's short or medium term. So that would be immediately excluding a lot of applications if we said that.
Yeah, I don't think we want to say that, and I just think that we would want to say that it needs to be a great example of preservation if it has zero community benefit.
Mm-hmm.
But having a short-term rental, if the building's abandoned and derelict, so it's a basket of things. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any other view? It's not just my opinion. Oh, David, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just have a question. I'm curious if MHC has given any guidance on this topic as far as kind of helping us compartmentalize the discrepancy between, affordable year-round housing and the short-term rentals, both of which qualify the property, for the tax credits. What are other towns doing? I know there aren't really any comparables to Nantucket, but I'm just curious what, if anything, we can do to continue to promote, affordable housing.
I couldn't comment on, definitively like a survey of what kind of applications MHC sees, but they do publish their criteria. We looked at it in a past meeting. They have to give, I think, 25% of their tax credit awards to projects that are for affordable housing. And they do, they do ask about community benefit, which can be in many different forms. And they're not specific. It's up to the applicant to make the case for the community benefit. And they have instructed our commission that, we should feel free to give them information about how a project is consistent or not consistent with our master plan or strategic plan.
Then maybe we do put something in there of examples of, projects that don't have strong community benefit. Without guiding the applicant's hand, I suppose.
Um,
If I may, I would just want to be cautious on being real stringent, because at the end of the day, I think everybody here, at least, common goal is to encourage historic tax credits versus the alternative, which could be a complete demolition of a structure. So, and loss of that architectural, resource. And I think we all agree that housing in general is of concern, but it's been of concern for quite a long time. And Nantucket hasn't necessarily, Nantucket has always had, whether it's affordable or not, short-term and long-term residences. You got to look back to after the collapse of the whaling era and Nantucket's association to, getting out of the city, so to speak, and coming to the seaside. Those essentially were a short-term type of living, arrangement that folks would live in for a short period of time, and renting those places. So it's kind of embedded with the Nantucket's history, and affordable housing obviously is more of a concern now, but it's always been a concern. So I would just be cautious on that. These are few and far between that come to the commission. We want to encourage more. I would just, want to put that caveat on there.
On that point, I'd like to add the phenomena of compromising historic integrity of the buildings and the streetscapes and all that it is a new phenomena related to what is marketable for short-term rentals and commercial use. Before everything sort of worked within the existing fabric, and now it seems much more about how much can we exploit it. Not to be too cynical about it, but I'm just calling it as I'm seeing it. So I think in some way that's got to get addressed.
Well, we're not going to vote on this today. I think I think there's a feeling of being positive in this and talking about, what we really want to see, what are, educating people about preservation, that it starts with identifying the contributing features of the structure, and making sure that those contributing features are respected and retained. And that's a process where people might want to work with Holly, or they might want to come to our commission and have a pre-conversation. And that there are resources, both through the National Park Service, Secretary of Interior's office, where they can get educated about that. And that also that there's an aspect of this tax credit program, the state program, that a lot of people probably don't know, which is the community benefit, and that we will consider that, we do consider that. And that we've outlined, a few positive elements that we'd like to see, and that we will certainly feel responsible to support. And overall that, we have the opportunity, we have a special relationship with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and we will really fight for these projects when we feel they're really deserving and great uses of the tax credit program, which is of course, our tax dollars at work. So Why don't I take, is it okay if we put that aside for now? We can think about it for the next couple weeks, and we'll maybe adopt it at our next meeting so everybody can have a little bit of time to consider it. Okay.
Is there a way we could get that in a form that we could download and print
Yeah.
at home? I'd love to
Now
have
that
that.
we've talked about it, I'll circulate it along with the
Thank
meeting. For
Thank
this.
you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Okay, so now we have an opportunity to put all of that thinking into practice with an example that, we've already talked about this twice. We have Aaron, consultant Aaron Doherty with us, the architectural designer, Polly Waldorf with us. And we had to put this on pause because we really didn't have enough time to absorb the materials. We have had enough time to absorb the materials now, and we've also had 2 presentations. So at this point, Aaron and Polly, I've understood that there's some revisions to the height. So I would like this meeting to follow a format of our asking you questions rather than just turning it over for a presentation. And then we're mainly going to have discussion among our commission and decide whether or not we want to offer a letter of support at this point. I can see that Frank Laser is joining. I know Frank is the project owner. And I also just want to mention, because it has been an issue with our remote meetings, and I think with all meetings, if folks are getting texts, and this is everybody, the applicant, staff, and commissioners, if folks are getting texts with comments, we do need to identify, that people are wanting to make comments and identify who's wanting to make the comments. So just please keep that digital aspect of our meetings now in mind. Okay, so maybe I will share the screen with the Holly. Sorry, do you have new drawings that you want to share? And I'm going to start off just asking the applicant to tell us about the changes since the change to the height. And we'll look at drawings, if that's okay.
Hi, yes, my name's Polly Waldorf. I am the architectural
Polly.
designer. There were no changes to the height. We're just determining what is the base flood elevation, design flood elevation. And I'm afraid on the drawings, we do need to update that again. But we did get the flood certificate from Teddy yesterday evening. So we'll be able to get that more accurate, but we did not change the height change.
I see. So the building is still being lifted 3 feet. And we saw in our packet, there was an email exchange, Polly, between you and Holly about this issue that you're talking about. And my understanding is that the building is, Holly, do you want to explain the detail about the flood? Just to frame this for everyone, the question is the building being raised 3 feet because it's at risk of that much flooding, or is it being raised 3 feet kind of beyond the flood zone? And what's the relationship between the elevation and the potential for flooding? I think, am I correct in saying that that's the question?
They are not, they're being very proactive. They are not located within the AE zone. They are about, I want to say approximately 40 feet away. They are located within the 2% flooding area based on the updated 2019 hazard mitigation. And I should mention that these are also based on the FEMA's maps that were updated in 2014. On a side note, I don't know when the next time we're going to have them updated, but that's something that obviously is done through FEMA and MEMA. But
Holly, sorry, is it 2% or is it 0.2%?
I think it's
0.2% because the AE zone is a 1%.
Okay, then you're correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I got that wrong.
0.2% annual chance. Yeah, very, very low.
Joe's going to bring it up on the map. But yes,
it's okay. Yeah, just if you could just tell us. So yeah.
So and when it comes to, Again, I mentioned this before, when it comes to the proposed increase in height and elevation, this is conforming with Resilient Nantucket, which is based on the Secretary of Interior's updated flooding and adaptation design guidelines. This is what we consider a low elevation profile. Again, the HDC has conditionally approved it based on their certificate of appropriateness for these architectural changes. So,
Okay. Thank you, Holly. All right, so let's hear from the commissioners, and commissioners, please feel free to direct questions if you have questions. If you don't have any questions, don't feel like you need to ask questions. So who wants to go first? Mickey.
Okay, so this is about the height raising. If this were in an AE zone, my understanding is that you wouldn't be allowed to do a finished basement. And this is kind of a question more than a statement, I think. But yet we are doing a finished basement. It's in an area that could be prone to flooding, 0.2% chance, I guess. How does that relate to Resilient Nantucket's guidelines if they're creating basement space, which is pretty likely to get flooded during an event, so the basement will get flooded. So can somebody talk about that concept? I mean, we are creating living space in a flooded area. I mean, how does that relate to what we're doing here?
I'm not sure who's
Basically-
going to answer that, but I have this, I feel like there's a conflict here. We're going up to avoid flood, but we're going down to gain space that would flood. So I have the same concern.
We are
Okay.
going up. Oh, this is Polly Waldorf again. Do I need to identify myself? every
Can I
time
just ask, yes, Polly, if you wouldn't mind directing your questions to the chair, just to keep the conversation organized. Mickey, are you directing your question to the applicant?
Yeah, I
can
am
you-
actually. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
And could you just state your question again so Polly could answer it?
Well, I think it's sort of a question, sort of a statement, is that, and Angus probably put it better than I, is that we're raising the building to avoid flooding, yet we're creating living space that is more than likely to get flooded. So how does that how does that relate to our concerns in terms of historic rehabilitation and our, the need to really raise it this much? And I guess that's another question. How much does it really need to be raised to make it safe? I mean, we're worried more about the structure, I guess, at this point than the basement living space, because we know that's going to get wet. But we do care about the safety and the preservation of the actual structure. So at what point above the ground does the building need to be raised to preserve the structure?
Polly, did you want to answer that?
Basically, the building does need to be, needs a new foundation underneath it, because the front and at least one side, probably, the other one as well, you have the sill sitting directly on the ground. And I also wanted to say that the FEMA maps are designed from historic flooding. They're not projections of future flooding. So if you look at historic flooding since 2014, there have been, 10, or I think basically what I did from 1980 until now, there have been flooding events, the top 10 flooding events, and of those, since 2014, 8 have occurred. So the FEMA maps definitely need to be updated. So that's one point. Another point is that we are preserving the existing historic envelope of the building by raising it up out of the ground. So what is historic now, we will preserve it by getting it up off the ground. What's in the basement, if it potentially gets flooded, although we are going to wet proof it and everything else, that does not affect the historic properties of the building. So we're trying to preserve that for another 250 years by raising that part out of the ground. That doesn't have anything really to do with the historic tax credits or the historic, nature of the building, what's below ground. So That's my response.
Okay,
So can I-
oh, sorry, go ahead, Mickey.
I just wanted to, because I didn't hear, and I think I'm really looking for a number. You know, how high do we really have to raise this building to safeguard it from flooding? You know, what's the highest it's ever flooded in this zone, this area, this particular lot above grade? And, you know, I know we don't know future issues, but we can kind of get a rough sense from the past.
I can jump in, Polly, Erin Doherty with Epsilon. So just to speak to the height that the building is being elevated. So the project sought to comply with Nantucket's recently adopted guidelines for the elevation of historic structures. And those guidelines acknowledge that there is no set height that a building should go or can go under the guidelines. But it does recommend that low elevation projects be pursued instead of high elevation projects, with that break being at 4 feet. So with that in mind, the project is set up as a low elevation project at 3 feet, coming 3 feet out of the ground. And the architectural designer, and in consultation with Historic District Commission, felt that that could be an appropriate height for this building specifically, given the design of the exposed foundation wall, lowering that shingle line to mitigate the amount of brick that's going to be exposed, and then also the opportunity for fencing at the front of the property, which was historically in place, but also does help mitigate that visual change of the building being elevated.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Does anybody have any other questions about elevation, specifically about elevation?
Hillary, this is
Clement.
Clement.
Mhm.
My comment is, I think we also have to look at the streetscape. This is the little house next door to this one to the right has been elevated, but only a foot perhaps. And it's, I believe, a 1-story house. This one feels to me like the biggest house on the block. I know they've sent us a lot of pictures of the Orange Street houses and how tall they are. But this is a big house on the block the way it is. And if you go up 3 more feet, it's going to be even bigger. So I like to look at the whole streetscape for the historical view. And I guess the point is, we would like to see this not go up as much as 3 feet.
Okay. And any other comments on elevation?
I might just add, the notion or the concept of lowering the shingle line to mitigate the amount of exposed brick. To me, that's changing the historic character of the house, because it changes the relationship of the windows to the floor level, the door, the base of the door. So to me, that's sort of cheating the shingle line down, where it really is, it's losing its natural position. So I don't really love the notion of lowering shingle lines to hide things.
Yeah. Thank you, Mickey. I mean, I think what we're getting at is something that we've touched on before, is that this is a very simple house. And, as we discussed in our earlier discussion, for this tax credit program and the preservation program, we want to see the defining characteristics of the house be identified and preserved. And what Mickey's saying is that, and Clement is also saying, is that the orientation towards the street and the proportion of the street, the curb line, the grade, the height, the relation of the windows, that is all typical of this 1750s salt box structure, and that that's adversely impacted by the elevation, which does not seem to be absolutely necessary to the extent that it's being undertaken, given that it's to create density in a flood area, in terms of habitation in the basement. I want to move on to another defining characteristic of the house, the central chimney. I have some additional photos that were sent to us that I want to share, and I'm sorry, it's just going to take me a minute to pull those up.
While you're bringing those up, I do just want to make a point that, you know, obviously this commission is looking at it from a historic tax credit perspective. However, you cannot disagree that the HDC has already vetted it from a certificate of appropriateness perspective. And I want to make that clear. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is denying that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now I need to turn this around. Okay, so that Erin, you shared with us, and it's in the packet, the pictures of the chimney stack in a state of having fallen apart. These pictures were shared in response to our request when we got the part 2 back in November of saying, you know, this massive, it's you know, over 13 feet long, it's I think nearly 6 feet wide on and it's a 2-story 18th century hearth with bake oven and everything, is a defining characteristic of the building. And the part 2 referred to you know, that it was deteriorated, but we didn't have any photos of it. So you sent you removed the surrounding partition walls that had been erected, and you sent us photos, which are in the packet. I'm not going to share them on my screen right now, but we can do that later. And we saw something that had really, you know, been quite demolished. But what we do know from these pictures that were taken by a Penn Austin, who is a preservation mason who was in the house doing some work at the invitation of the previous owner from 2018 and 2019, is that the chimney was until recently intact. So this is a shot of the attic showing all the different flues in this massive fireplace. So there was like a, you know, a kettle oven, a bake oven, a couple, 2 different hearths, and these are under the floorboards. And you can see all of the different chimneys that are existing. It's a massive stack of brick, and this is obviously, you know, it has to have something holding it up. So it's still here. This is a picture of the 2nd floor chimney. This is another picture from a different orientation where you can really see all of the hearths. And I'm just going to share the pictures of what it looks like now. Okay. All right, so this is what it looks like now. So this is these are the pictures that we saw these back in November, and we now know that the chimney stack is underneath here. So I'm just wondering why, Erin, you didn't lift up these boards to take pictures of the chimney stack when you took these pictures back in November. I mean, isn't that an important aspect of this historic home?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question was, when you documented the existing condition of the house, which is a requirement for the federal program and the state program, why didn't you lift up these boards and take pictures of the existing chimney stack that had been sheared off at the attic?
It was just not done at the time.
Okay. Well, I think this commission has made it clear, and I think anybody, I mean, wouldn't you agree that the chimney stack is an important defining character of the interior of this building?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah,
So as far as the chimney stack, so prior to the current ownership, we
well,
think.
the
some
question
kind of-
is a chimney stack is an 18th century chimney stack an important defining characteristic of the interior of a structure of this type?
So the chimney was removed down to the attic floor prior to this owner. And then given the questions about the condition of the stack.
Aaron, I'm
of the
sorry, I'm sorry, it's a general question. So the general question is, when you're looking at a simple 1750s salt block structure that has a 13-foot long by 6-foot wide chimney stack hearth, is that a defining characteristic, in your opinion, as a preservation consultant, of the interior of the structure?
Well, it would depend on the condition of the building. Yes, a central chimney is a typical feature of a building of this age.
Yeah. So that was all I was trying to establish, that, you know, we would certainly agree with that. And it sounds like you would agree with that. So I think it really was an oversight to not lift up these boards and take a picture. Because we now don't know what you saw in November. We know what it looked like in 2019, which are the pictures that I saw. So this is what, I guess these pictures were taken recently, but this is what the chimney stack looks like now. Which would, you know, argue for it to be removed as called for in the plan. This is the first floor, and this had been filled in with cement and was behind walls. So, yeah, I see Tom's hand going up.
Are there plans to rebuild this chimney as it was?
Well, I can answer that. I mean, the plan is that the program for this structure is to turn it to allow it to accommodate, I think it has 9 bedrooms, and it's a high occupancy short-term rental. So no, I mean, this chimney stack is so massive that sort of program could not be accommodated with that chimney stack remaining. Yep, Tom.
Okay, now that we've established that, I'm a less of a diplomat than the rest of everybody on the commission, but I think when we talk about demolishing the chimney and raising the height of the foundation, what's really going on here? This is all smoke and mirrors as far as I'm concerned. I think they're just trying to make a lot more room in the basement so that they can maximize this out. And whether they have HDC approval or not, they are bastardizing a very significant old house. And I don't know, I'm 75 years old. I have never seen the water come across Union Street in my life. And this house is well back from that. And so I just think that I'm not in favor of raising the house and allowing that, even if the HDC has given their permission.
Okay, so let me just ask the commissioners. I think we've discussed this. We've had 2 presentations. We've discussed this twice. We've now seen pictures of the intact chimney stack in 2019. And we have also seen that it wasn't documented in November when we got pictures, but that it has been documented now in a state of demolition. And it's our responsibility to decide if we want to support this project for tax credits based on its standard of preservation or its community benefit. So I'd like to go around and hear thoughts on that from everyone. I'm going to start with Angus, and please keep it brief because we have other things to get on to. So just a couple sentences.
I'm uncomfortable with supporting this. It's I feel like the whole point of the tax credit is to support rehabilitation of historic structures and preserve them. And front, center, left, right, top to bottom, it feels like this historic structure is being compromised and then supported with a tax credit, and it makes me uncomfortable. I feel like the character defining elements are, it's the streetscape, the elevation, the central chimney, all these aspects that are being compromised in the projected project. And is a long policy. Window wells haven't been allowed on the street, and so the elevation and then the addition of the windows and a visible basement just feet from the street on so many levels, this just doesn't seem like something that I think behooves preservationists or the HDC or the Historical Commission for having been in support of. I would hate to encourage more projects like this as a result of supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Angus. Georgia, did you have comments or questions?
I'm not an architect, but I have been listening and very impressed by both Clement's comments about the streetscape and Angus and Tom's comments about distance from, well, Angus, Clement's comments about streetscape and the architect's comments about the inappropriateness of raising it and exposing more shingles and putting the windows out of proportion to where they used to be with regard to the bottom of the house. I think in general, I just don't think it's a good historic renovation, and I don't think it's worthy of the tax credit or our support.
Okay. David?
Yeah, I think I share a lot of opinions with the commissioners and appreciate, the experts chiming in. Yeah, I mean, I think looking back to the last meeting, I think I remember Polly making a good point that, the sea level is rising and, you don't want to lift this structure just a little bit and, 15, 20 years down the line, having to lift it again. That said, I think that the amount that it's being raised is excessive, in comparison to where the flood zone is. And, I would have liked to see a reduction in the height of the proposed lift, but yeah, I think I share a lot of concerns with the rest of the commissioner.
Could I add one more thing? I mean, we've been just shown some pictures
Actually,
of how.
sorry, Georgia, I just, Holly, Georgia, did you need the screen? I was going to ask Holly to stop sharing the screen because I think we want to have discussion now. And then
Well, Holly
Oh.
shared pictures of the houses on Orange Street, and I just wanted to say that I think that it's interesting to look at them because they're very different than the house on Beaver Street, and to use them as examples of houses that have been successfully raised and with basement windows showing merely illustrates to me how different the Beaver Street house and how inappropriate it is to do those same things with the Beaver Street house.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Thank you. Holly, could we, if anybody wants to see this screen, please request it. And who else wants to make a comment who hasn't had a chance to make a comment among the commissioners? Clement?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the chimney, I mean, as you pointed out, we don't know when all these photos were taken, but the chimney was clearly demolished. So exactly when, but prior to the current owners. So I think they should not be dinged because they didn't try to rebuild the chimney. I mean, I know that's a very historic attribute of this age house, but if it's already been gone, there's no way you can bring it back. So they're obviously using that space where the chimney used to be to expand the bedrooms and everything else and to maximize the house by going all the way to the roof. And, that should not be criticized.
Clement, what makes you feel that the chimney was clearly demolished prior to the current owners?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the pictures now.
Yeah.
But it did say somewhere in the historic thing that the chimney was demolished from the attic down or
The
from the
chimney
second
was
floor?
sheared off from, yeah, so that was not uncommon. People have sold the bricks. And the current owner is actually putting kind of a fake chimney back, that'll complete the look of the house, but just sticking out the top. It's like a,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Oh,
to
no,
look.
the little pile of bricks on the
Yeah.
top of that. I don't,
Yeah,
I mean, I sometimes look at that and I think, why would you put a fake chimney where there isn't a fireplace? Maybe
That's
because
okay.
it's adorable, but it's just a question to me of, I don't know if the house doesn't get the tax credit, will they demolish the house? That's, how far will we go if you don't get the tax credits? I guess, I mean, I think they've done a nice design for this house for what they want. They want 5 bedrooms or whatever. And then the cottage really is insignificant, but is the tax credit benefit to the community, or will the house not be done if they don't get the tax credit? I guess that's my question. I think it's they did a nice renovation, but does it deserve a tax credit? I guess that's what I'm thinking. I sort of think it does, but I see all the other changes and in the floodplain, is everybody going to start going up 3 feet and then this house will no longer be the tallest house in the lot because the other ones will go up too. So I guess I have conflicted opinions.
okay.
Thank you for
Clemmy,
listening.
you'll get to vote. So,
Yeah.
so I'll make some comments. My feeling is that this is a very quite ancient lean-to house, and it's being styled more like a typical Nantucket house, elevated with the windows, the window wells and the side stair, and that the character defining features of the house as it is are, of course, the massing of the house, the relationship of it as a low house, built low to the street, and the central chimney mass. And I think, the central chimney mass existed for nearly 300 years. It was existing in the final year of the prior ownership of the house. It was not documented in November, either in ways that were easy to do, like lifting up the boards in the attic and just taking pictures of the flue. It could have been explored even without taking the boards, the partition boards that were shielding it off. And that wasn't done, even though it was clearly, we could have learned an awful lot about how people cooked in the 18th century. It had multiple flues, it had multiple cooking changers. It might have been unique. We didn't really have the chance to explore that. The whole point of this preservation program is to bring information, encourage owners to ask those questions and bring this type of information to light. This owner has no obligation to preserve this chimney mass. What they've done is within their purview to do, but or what they want to do. So anyway, now we know that the mass is largely demolished. We don't know how that came to pass, but that is the condition now. And I think there are a lot of questions about that, frankly. So given that there might have been an opportunity to preserve that mass, which is a defining feature, and to preserve the shape and the massing in relation to the street, I don't think this is a good example of preservation practice, even though there are some positives, such as the house is not being completely gutted, although it's being mostly gutted with the removal of the chimney, the stairs being preserved. So there are positive aspects, but I don't think it goes far enough to deserve our support as a preservation project. That's my opinion. Regarding the community benefit, it is a investor-owned high occupancy short-term rental. And there is a lot of discussion just last week at the select board There was discussion about, how do we differentiate between the short-term rentals that are a way of life on Nantucket and the short-term rentals that maybe are kind of the new commercialized, that are purely for investment, and part of an investor consortium. I mean, I personally make a connection between the franchise store act that we have on Nantucket, where we decided that, of course, we want lots of different types of stores, but we don't want franchise stores. And I think there's a differentiation in terms of types of short-term rental too. So that's not for us to decide, but it is an active conversation. There are quotes in the paper this week about that. And I think it does make sense to identify what type of short-term rental this is. So those are my comments. And are we ready to make a motion as to whether or not we would support or not support this project?
I would like to make that motion,
What is your motion, Tom?
that we vote on whether or not to support this house.
Okay, or do you want to, is your motion to
For
support it
tax
or not?
credit, for tax
Is-
credit or not.
Is your motion to support it or not to support it, Tom?
My motion is to not support it.
Okay. And do you want to give, we'll need to, well, I guess we can do that in two motions. So does anybody want to second that? Motion not to support?
Second,
Thank you, Mickey. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Okay. Tom? Are you in favor of your motion?
Aye.
Georgia? I see you saying aye. Yeah.
Dog was barking. Aye.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Mickey, Clement,
I'm not in favor of the motion.
okay, Angus,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So the motion passes. And we do need to write the letter. I'd like to propose that, as we have in the past, that Angus and I write the letter. The letter is going to reference the things that we've discussed, which is the elevation of the house in excess of what we feel is necessary, the impact of that on the streetscape, the central chimney, I mean, we don't know how it was demolished, but that it wasn't documented, so it's a general concern. And the lack of community benefit. So could I actually have a second motion or any comment about other things that should go in the letter?
Make a motion that you and Angus draft the letter and I guess circulate
Include
it.
those items. Okay, a second. Georgia, thank you.
Second.
Okay, Tom,
I just seconded it.
okay, are you in favor of the motion, Tom?
All right, yes, aye.
Okay, Clement, I know you voted no, but given that it
No,
passed,
but
are
I'm
you
in favor
the
of your letter. I'm
Okay,
in
thank
favor of your
you.
letter.
Okay, so I from Clement, Mickey,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Okay, and I am also an aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. So now we'll move on to our next discussion, which is regarding warrant articles of interest and an opportunity to comment. I'm going to go ahead and let me find my screen with the warrant. Here we go. Okay. So we're in kind of the final throes of having the select board comment and the finance committee comment and planning board comment on the warrant. So the warrant's been published, and then these other boards have the opportunity to comment, and the comments are published in the warrant. So if there are any articles that we consider to be of concern to this commission that we would like to comment on, I think it's fine for us to comment to the select board. I think their comments are going to be finalized in the next couple of weeks. And we can also, of course, make comments at the meeting. That's not until May 2nd. So does anybody want to get us started with any thoughts about this? Anybody read the articles ahead of time or have any articles that they think we'd really like to comment on?
Madam Chair, I don't know if this is a good time to go over the way you have it on the agenda, but to talk about Article 80.
Sure, we can jump right in with that one.
Okay, so of the benefit of the commission, and I'm not sure if everybody knows, but I did speak on behalf of the HTC at FinCom, and basically gave proof of the fact that the HTC Special Act does not need to be, I guess what a good phrase to say, bending over for special interest groups, that our special act needs to stay pure as it has been written, and only be amended when necessary. We do have design guidelines that address solar within and out of the old historic districts. Therefore, it's a moot point to add it within the special act. Very happy to say that the Finance Committee did make a motion for a negative recommendation. So they said that the information that I provided on behalf of the HDC, as well as testimony, was very, I guess, helpful in their determination. So it will give a negative recommendation moving forward. And I'm very grateful for that. There's unintended consequences the way that that was worded. And we, again, having something changed within the very special act that was created prior to any federal and state preservation laws is really just gearing towards a special interest group. So I'm very happy that they gave that negative recommendation.
Holly, do you think there's any need for us to comment further? I mean,
I really don't think it's necessary. The fact that, I mean, really and truly next, I think Thursday is when the select board, the finance committee, and the planning board have their joint meeting to go over the final comments and recommendations for town meeting. I think that if FinCom did not give it a negative recommendation, then I would say yes, that would be beneficial for this commission to make a comment. But the fact of the matter that they've given it a negative, I don't think it's necessary.
sorry, next Thursday, it's a joint select board and planning board meeting?
I have that on my calendar, that it's a
Okay.
joint select board, FinCom, planning board to go over
Okay,
the
the three
18
of them.
motions. Yes.
Okay.
I don't
All
know
right,
if there's a
thank you.
posted agenda yet, though. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, so if we wanted to make a comment, that would be a way to get it into them to comment on, everything that we want to comment on. Does anybody want to comment on Article 80? Or we can just comment that we second staff comments. Support the FinCom motion. Does anybody not support the FinCom motion on Article 80?
I'm curious as to what other people are thinking about the wording and the implication of this article. The HTC still has the final word, but is the article trying to force the HTC to allow visible solar panels where they otherwise may not? I mean, it sounds like that's the intention, and if that's the case, then I don't think that's something that should be done. I wouldn't support it personally.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may, there's unintended consequences putting it within the special act. It needed, if this is something that the commission wants to do, then the commission needs to bring it forth. But putting it the way that it's being worded, going against the fact that we already have design guidelines that allow it everywhere, as you're well aware, there is unintended consequences that it could have.
And quite apart from that, Holly, I mean, it reads, it shall reasonably allow. I mean, that doesn't give the HDC a lot of leeway. They'd have to show that it would be unreasonable. I mean, it seems pretty strong to me. I'm
Okay,
glad FinCom didn't agree with, disapproved of it.
okay. So if we do write a letter, I'll just make a note that we would support FinCom motion on 80, which I think will be useful for the public to hear that we agree. Okay, Article 81 is mine. If you guys want to talk about that, somebody can move to talk about it. I would need to recuse myself, so I'm going to just skip over it for now. Article 54 and 55, the spa hot tub warrant. I mean, we've commented on this in the past, so I don't see any reason why our comment would change. I think if we do send a letter to the select board and for consideration in this meeting, we would just paraphrase what we have said before. Is there any reason why that wouldn't be the case? Or anything else to add?
I think that covers it.
Okay, everyone should be aware, if you're not already, that there is a survey out that you should encourage people to fill out. It's being conducted by the Nantucket Town Association, and the survey link is on their website. If you go to nantuckettown.association.org, you can fill out a survey. It's a survey for people who live in the residential Old Historic and Sconset Old Historic districts. But there's an option, if you just want to fill out the survey anyway, you can indicate that you don't live there, but you want to fill it out anyway. And those responses will be separated out, reported separately. Other articles on this list, 13. What is 13? Oops. Article 13. Oh, Pleasant Street sidewalks. Okay, so obviously this sidewalk needs to be built. It's like one of the highest priority sidewalks. We did give a detailed review of the plan it's a draft plan. But this is also a really sensitive area. The homeowner, the Phelan family is, I guess, talking with the town about maybe making their own sidewalk and giving it to the town if they can negotiate an agreement. I don't know what the status of that is, but there's, I flagged this one for discussion about the commission because we still, we were promised some kind of memorandum of understanding about how sidewalks would be reviewed for historic appropriateness, that some sort of statement from the town would be forthcoming. And obviously, that's just fallen completely out of the viewfinder. So I wanted to have an opportunity to discuss what, if any, comment we might make about this appropriation. And I'll just open it up for any comments. I mean, you can see it says to see what sum the town will vote to appropriate to be spent by the town manager with approval for the select board for the purpose of making various improvements on Pleasant Street and adjacent sidewalks, including design, permitting, engineering, construction, supervision, materials, related professional services, provided, however, that the borrowing, okay, there's standard boilerplate language about Proposition 2.5. But so this would be to get the money, and then once the town meeting has authorized the money, the town manager would work with the appropriate people to create a design, and then that would be approved by the select board. So any comments? Tom?
Yeah, I would hope that the town would work with the Phalans. They've done a lot in this town. They're a family that's been here a long, long, long time. And they actually have a number of awards for some of the preservation stuff that they've done here. And years ago, I'm sure people that have lived in Nantucket a long time know this, but where they cut all those trees down, there used to be a beautiful garden there. And I think their intention is to try and redo that. But the sidewalk issue that we're talking about involves two sets of pieces of property, both of which they own. One is with the old farmhouse, which is level with the street, and there's a split rail fence with a number of very large trees that abuts where the sidewalk ends across from Joe Souza's barber shop, and goes along there, the farmhouse property, to a shell driveway, and then it drops down into that cavernous spot where the garden was, where they cut down all the trees, and then back up to a very small house, which they also own, before you get to the house on the corner. And so in order to facilitate putting any kind of a sidewalk in that vicinity, that's going to take a lot of engineering and to make it one smooth, level, passable area. And there's not a lot of room there for cars to, it's a 2-lane street, but it's very, very narrow right there in front of the Phelan's house. And I'd like to know what the town intends to do there engineering wise.
Thank you,
Um,
Tom. Holly?
Thank you. First, I wanted to, for the benefit of the commission, mention that Ken could not be here today, but he wanted me to pass along some of his comments on these discussions for some of these articles.
Yep.
He said that he had a concern with the comments as to the cultural input as to the 3 articles mentioned, namely with Article 13, any comment is premature as this is a request for funding and reflects action previously requested by NHC for the town to address. I would mention that, again, these are appropriation requests. This is to request the money to actually hire the consultant. So it's kind of premature to be able to say, well, what exactly is the town going to do? Well, of course, we don't know what the town plans on doing. And I did want to mention too, yes, we have fallen on the wayside, I guess is a good thing to see, or a good way to say it or phrase it, that we haven't been able to get a clear definition on a memorandum of understanding on our sidewalks and whatnot, which was something that we were going to do with the DPW, the previous director. We do have a new director. I have not had the opportunity to reach out with him on this particular topic. I know he's extremely busy. I have a pretty good working relationship with him in the past, so I'm glad to see that he was chosen as the next DPW director, and I'm confident that he and his team would work with this commission. So whether or not, again, we do know that there's plans to, I guess, help flow of pedestrian traffic along this stretch of Pleasant Street. Again, this is just for the funding aspect of it. And obviously this commission would be involved with the actual plans of this proposal. So.
I'm very happy to hear that, Holly.
Well, I am too, except I don't think it's obvious that we would be at all, actually.
It's not obvious, but I don't know how we can make it obvious in an appropriation. I mean, unless you want to condition an appropriation article on the participation of the future DPW head with something that we've already established. I don't know how we can do that in an appropriation article. Maybe I'm just inexperienced in this stuff, but can you add a condition to an appropriation article? Or you're opening a can of worms. We want this money as long as you guys agree that you're only going to spend it this way.
I think that would be unpopular.
Yeah.
I mean, we really need a sidewalk there. But
Well, and although I agree with you completely, Hillary, you can't, it's like it's like an open checkbook, right?
yeah.
But I don't see any way within the structure of the articles to construct this in a way that requires them to consult with us. That was why I was happy to hear what Holly had to say, and I hope that her judgment is correct in dealing with this fellow going forward. I hope that he's more reasonable than Rob was. I mean, than our previous DPW guy was.
I tend to agree with Georgia. I think that we should just, I don't know if we need to support it or not, but I'm totally in favor of Article 13 for a million reasons. And I think that if we're concerned about being involved in it, we need to pursue that aside from this, the warrant article.
So if we're headed towards kind of making some comments to the board, what if we just had the comment that we support Article 13, support funding this, and that moreover, we support working with the homeowner to the extent that the homeowner welcomes that. And it's a reminder of the importance of a statement of, the thing about the MOU, I don't understand why it has to be so complicated. All the town has to do is to say that they'll, work with the HTC and the NHC to make sure these sidewalks are historically appropriate. And they'll do that from the early phases of design, give us opportunities to comment and listen to what we have to say, as long as they agree with it. I mean, that's really all we're looking for. And maybe this is an opportunity to remind them that, we don't want this to become a problem and that we support it. Does that sound like a good comment?
It sounds like a good comment to me. I agree with Georgia that it shouldn't be a condition of our support of this article. But it does, I think our comment on it does give us an opportunity to chime in that we look forward to participating in the design review of it when the time comes.
Does anybody oppose that approach?
I just think we could address that as a separate issue. I'm not sure it's necessary to make our, if we're going to support the article, I think we should support the article. And if we want to get involved in the design of it, I think we should do that separately.
So, Mickey, do you want to have the letter say we support Article 13 and the creation of a sidewalk in this location, full stop? Or do you want the other approach would be to say we support it and we look forward to assisting, discussions about it being historically appropriate? So option A, option B.
Yeah, I mean, now that you're putting it into words, I think option B is perfectly fine. I wasn't sure how deep you wanted to get into it, but I think the way you've worded it there sounds fine.
Okay. Does anybody oppose that or have a different view about that? Clement, you're looking like you.
No. I think that's, I agree with Holly and Ken's comments that it is an appropriation. And I think the point is to just try to get in there and say, we approve of it and we want to be involved.
I mean, one thing to remember is, unlike a kind of a blue sky initiative, there actually is a plan for this that we've reviewed, and there was a lot that was inappropriate about the plan. So for instance, it called for actually grading, it called for like filling in the Phelan's garden to a large extent. I don't want to be quoted on exactly, but I mean, Mickey, do you remember all the issues that we had with that area?
Yeah, and I mean, their plan was so general and so vague that it wasn't a real design plan. It showed a sidewalk running right tight to the road along the Phelan's property, which is not really possible without doing a lot of filling and mostly killing a lot of trees. And I think that even the DPW at the time, I'm assuming they recognized that that was an area that needed much more work in terms of design. So I think their plan, I don't think it was a full-on engineered plan. It just couldn't have been,
Okay.
it just was too lacking in detail.
Do you think we need to mention it?
I think it's sort of an obvious that they're going to have to study that more carefully. And, you know, I think we should maybe help enable the feelings, if they haven't already, to reach out to the DPW and to kind of help coordinate that relationship. I think the town will be open to that. There, you know, there might even be some support financially there to
Okay.
get this done. So
I
I don't see
Okay.
why the town would oppose that.
I think what Mickey just said is exactly correct. That is the way to go.
Okay, so would the commission, assuming that we're working towards some kind of commentary letter, would the commissioners feel comfortable delegating the exact language to Tom and Mickey and me to formulate along the lines of this discussion as regards Article 13?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll get Holly's input into that as well. Okay, the next article, 91 and 92. Let me remember what these are.
If I may, Madam Chair, I do have additional comments from Ken to let you all know.
Okay, go ahead.
He said, Article 91 and 92, I have no idea what is to be contributing in any comments, as this is a request for funding to acquire the parcel, not
right.
anything to do with the parcel if and when acquired. And he did say that any comments, he's asking that they be submitted to town administration for review. I did want to mention that, you know, I agree with him that as far as it's kind of premature. However, obviously this commission would add value to the discussion of the site, of the history of the building, what is original, what is contemporary, those type of things when that comes to be. This is literally just to acquire it. It's not to do anything other than that. But maybe, you know, putting some sort of a comment to say you'd like to be involved in the conversation once, if it gets that point past town meeting.
Thank you, Holly. Yeah, so I guess this is sort of similar to Article 13 in that way. I did receive a note from Jason Bridges saying, you know, we just want to get the funds and then, you know, you'll definitely have an opportunity to comment. I kind of agree that this isn't really, I just don't know what our comment would be at this point. Does anybody have an opinion or comment about this? Does everybody know what we're talking about?
Easy Street Restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Angus.
Well, I was just going to say, as Holly said, it's kind of similar to 13 that we would support the article, but you know, and we look forward to, you know, participating in the whatever the use of it is, or how it's going to be utilized.
Does everybody support the article? I'm not asking you individually, you'll all have your own vote, but do you feel like it's in the preservation interest of the town for the town to acquire this parcel? I mean, is this something that we want to say the NHC supports acquisition of this, understanding that it might be acquisition to dismantle this building? Or is it something we'd prefer to be silent about? Tom?
Are you going to ask for us to vote on all of this at once? Or are we going to do this?
I think, I don't know. I'm not at that, but we're still just discussing.
I told you
Oh.
I had to leave, and so if you're going to take a vote, you know, could we take it now? If not, then I have to go.
Yeah, so we can vote. I need to summarize what we discussed, and my notes seem to be flying off my desk, but just to finish the discussion on 31, do we want to be silent, or do we want to say that the Historical Commission supports the idea of the town acquiring 31 Easy Street by purchase, gift, eminent domain? And it's really for the purposes of creating public way, sidewalk, drainage, flood control, general municipal works and conveyance. So obviously, you know, if they acquire it, it's because they want to create more access to the waterfront, more, they're not acquiring it to preserve the building. They might end up doing that, but that's not
I
a
have no
stated goal.
problem with it. I have no problem.
I wonder if we need to comment on this one at all.
I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
where
agree
I'm
too.
leaning as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we can informally at any time say that we'd like to be able to comment on something like this, but maybe for town meeting, it's not something we need to say. Okay, all right, so I think what we've decided is that we want to support the FinCom motion on Article 80 and thank the staff. Thank Holly for all of her work on that. We want to make comments, as we've discussed, on Article 13, which will be agreed to by Tom and Mickey and Hillary. And we want to reiterate our comment on Article 54 and 55 as previously made, but we'll do it in a more condensed way. And we want to be silent on 91 and 92. Do you all want me to recuse myself so that you could make any comment about Article 81?
not sure.
Angus, I'm going to turn it over to you actually, so you can ask that question. I'll put 81 up so you can know what it is. And then I'm going to just.
I think that 81 is.
Wait, I have to go away. Hang on, how do I? Okay, go ahead.
So I'm inviting any comments on 81, if anyone has anything to comment on.
I've got to go. I'll see you all later.
Tom, do you have any comment before? Gone. Mickey, please go ahead.
I think that 81 is not specifically in our domain as a historical commission perspective. And I also think that, considering the sponsor of the article, that we should probably not go there anyway.
Any other comments from the commission?
I would say that I think, as Hillary has pointed out, although I shouldn't mention her, but we are all going to be voting at this meeting, and I think it's up to our, we can individually vote, but I agree with Mickey, we should not make a comment as a group.
Any other comments? Okay, so I think we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Okay, so we have an article. It's not going to mention 81, but it'll mention the others. So I think we should probably vote on that. Does anyone want to make a motion for our letter that will go to for consideration at the joint meeting of the Planning Board, Select Board, and FinCom?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
great. All right. David, are you in favor of your motion?
Aye.
Georgia?
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
Mickey?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Okay, everybody, thank you. The work plan. So once again, I think we're running out of time to talk about our work plan, but I think I really appreciate that everybody was willing to have the extra meeting, and I felt it was appropriate to include the Beaver Street application on it, even though we scheduled it, because we wanted to do other things. But I did want to share something under a couple things under other business. One, regarding our new director of the DPW, I was wondering what you all thought about maybe sending a memo to him. Just, he knows us, but just to say that we welcomed him, congratulated him on his promotion, and, welcome the opportunity to work with him.
Sure.
I think that's a great idea. I think having a conversation with him sooner than later is a good idea.
Okay. All right. So we'll send a congratulatory note. Speaking of conversations, did you hear back? So I asked Angus to call Dawn. I thought, maybe she'd prefer to talk to Angus if there's some reason why, she's not coming to the meetings. Did you ever hear back from her, Angus?
I left a message with her, but I haven't heard anything back.
Okay. Well, I think we should always make 3 attempts to contact someone. So can you keep trying?
I can. I've called. I just left a message that we missed seeing her in the meeting and having representation of the select board at our meetings, and look forward to her return. And if it didn't seem like it was working, that we would certainly need or prefer to have another representative join us. So I didn't just call and say, "Hi, it's Angus, call me back." I was pretty clear about what the message was.
Well, could you try again, and let's see if she calls you, because I think a conversation is warranted. Then we can decide what to do.
Sure.
I also wanted to update everybody on some conversations I had yesterday. Do you remember we talked about these telephone poles and the proposal from Verizon to put splints on them? And the commissioners decided to convey that we really didn't like the metal splints, and that, maybe this fiber wrap was an option. We wanted to know whether or not it was, so that we could evaluate it further. And then there was also the option of going through the list. I think Holly identified it about 100 of them in the old historic district, and that maybe if there were some that were particularly sensitive in terms of their location or really tight clearances, that we would recommend the town ask Verizon to do a pole replacement, because Verizon can replace the pole rather than splinting it. And there's, they're not going to charge the town for this. So anyway, I was a little bit surprised because we didn't get a response from that. That was in October, and the conversation just died. And then at the select board meeting last week, the select board was asked to approve splinting of all 259 poles. And the town manager told everybody that we'd reviewed the plan. And the select board voted to splint 259 poles. So obviously we didn't approve we commented and we were left with questions. So I just wanted to make everyone aware, because it's been published in the paper, the commission approved the plan, and it was disappointing because obviously if we're going to work on something, we want to get to a resolution. The town manager did apologize, I pointed this out, and they did apologize for not getting back to us with answers to our questions, and said, if you want to, basically they felt that it really wouldn't make a difference, that, if we did have recommendations, that it wouldn't matter. And we don't know all the reasons why a pole, obviously just aesthetics cannot be the sole consideration with utility poles. So I just had wished that there had been better coordination. And I honestly viewed this a little bit as a litmus test. I don't want to say a litmus test. I viewed it as another example of how to work cooperatively to resolve issues and get clear answers. And it just didn't end where I hoped it would. So I did, I said to the town manager, if you still want us, if you still think it would make a difference and you want us to look at this list, we will, but I can't ask the volunteers to spend time on something where you don't think it will make any difference. And that's kind of where it's been left. I don't have any clear indication that they do think it'll make a difference. So I needed to raise it with you all. Holly, I don't know if you have comment on, I know you care about this issue too, and looked at the list and spent time on it. Mickey has concerns from accessibility perspectives. So any desired conversation on this topic?
I would like to know where the list of poles that are being replaced are. As you mentioned, I am concerned about if the trusses are going to narrow the sidewalk even further, then I'd want to know from the accessibility issue standpoint. And granted, there aren't any phone poles right on Lower Main Street, but if there are other poles that are, maybe a couple that are in really sensitive locations historically, then maybe we could weigh in on, a small handful of poles, and maybe they'll listen to that. So I guess I just would like more information. Where are the poles? So maybe we could, move on from there. Do we have a
Okay,
list of where the poles are?
Holly has a list of all the polls, and I know it was in a meeting packet in the past. Does anybody
Yeah.
else want to spend some time working on this? I mean, you're right, Mickey. We could give them a list if there's some that pop out as being a big concern and see if they can do anything about it. Maybe they can.
I was going to ask if this is set in stone. Is there still any sort of recourse in trying to have an impact on how these poles are going to be rehabilitated? If this can be done more sensitively than what they're planning. I think Mickey's idea is a good one of at least, seeing the highest visibility, but yeah, when you look at the single greatest detractor of the historic environment and streetscape, it's the telephone poles. So, I mean, it only gets worse when they're, supported insensitively.
Has anyone had a chance to see the splints? I heard from somebody that they're god awful, but you haven't seen them.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what a splint is. When I look back, I went to that Wednesday night talk on sidewalks. Are we talking about that kind of splinting at the bottom, or what are we talking about? Doubling or?
It's, we talked about this in I believe our October meeting. And I know there was stuff in the packet.
Sorry, I missed it.
October meeting here. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna.
It's a germane point. If some of them are downtown, the rest are not.
This is the splint. See, it's like this.
I see. Oh, yeah.
And it's painted brown. And the answer to our questions is that they're going to paint them every 10 years.
Great.
We had said, how are they going to maintain the paint? And they said they're going to paint them every 10 years. And they said that this fiber wrap is not, they don't use that in the Northeast. I guess it's not winter proof.
They are awful.
And yeah. So I think the recourse is, yeah, I guess it's probably worth, if there are people who are excited about this, looking at a couple and saying, look, if you could just get Verizon to replace these and see if it's successful. But
It's
like I
worth a
said,
try.
there are 100. Let's see if I have that.
The question too,
remember-
if the justification for ignoring our comments and questions is that it doesn't have any impact, that they're going to do what they're going to do, then why waste the time on it? But I guess the question is any further effort going to be received or ignored?
I don't think we're going to know until we give the effort.
I think Mickey's
Holly.
point is right. There's
I just
only
want to
a few-
mention, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I saw the list. There was a map that Verizon provided to town admin, and then I gave the approximate amount of number based on how many dots I saw in the location. There was at least 100 within the old historic district, and then on the outskirts, that doesn't include that part. So quite a bit.
Well, Mickey and I have in the past been gluttons for punishment as far as looking at these sidewalk issues. Angus, I know you have a ton of projects going on. Would anybody else, is anyone else excited about the opportunity to maybe choose a few critical poles that we want to spare from being splinted and ask the town if they could?
I would help.
Don't.
Look.
Okay, so David will have a look too. So David and Mickey and I can look. And I will ask Erica to send us the list and location. Okay.
Taylor, you do so much. I'm happy to join the guys.
Well, we can only
Uh,
have 3, and I've just been thinking, Angus, how you've taken over from me on the committee, helping Holly with the study. And I know you have a ton of architectural projects going on right now, plus you're talking to Dawn, so I don't mind. This is not going to be we're not going to do a comprehensive overview, but we'll look at it. We'll have one meeting about it. see
Thank
what
you.
to do. Okay,
Hillary,
Clement.
I'm on island if you feel, I could do that too. The 3 of us
Okay.
are on island, so.
Well, maybe I won't do it. Why don't I step away from this and let Mickey and Clement and David do it? And I will send you the exchanges and I will introduce Erica to you, and then I will, not be part of it.
Just be easy for the 3 of us, I think.
Yeah, that would
Oh.
be great. I would love to.
Okay.
You guys have to be prepared for the idea that I might not be reappointed in June. So, it's always a possibility. Okay, well, I don't think we can work on our work plan because we've run out of time, and I want to be respectful of people's time, especially Holly, who has more meetings than she can handle. But any other topics for discussion before we adjourn? Any comments about our meeting today? I know it was a little uncomfortable because we don't like saying no to people, but
Maybe under, I guess, other business, Georgia brought it up, the streetscapes presentation.
oh
that
yeah,
Jen
thank you for
did.
mentioning that. I meant to, yeah.
I did want to just mention for the benefit of the commission, I did ask Kim if she could send out a copy, not only the link to the recording so everybody can see it, but also a copy of her PowerPoint presentation with what she showed. So I'll be sending that out to actually the entire CLG. So that way both commissions can take a look at it at your leisure. But I'm very excited to see what comes of it. Also, just another note, there was a survey that they're doing for this work. So please, it's anonymous, so you don't have to put your contact information, but as a commissioner, it might not be a bad idea. So of course they have follow-up questions, but just wanted to mention that it was I think a great event, and thanks to the Athenaeum for hosting.
Excellent. You're very
Yes,
impressive.
Clement and I will accept the thanks on behalf of the Athenaeum.
It was a great presentation.
Yeah, so much work. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Holly, for remembering about that. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else?
I'll
So
move it.
moved.
Okay, all right, thank you all. Have a enjoy the sunshine, and spring will be here soon.